So he's very busy person. In spite of it, I requested him to inaugurate, and he has kind enough to accept. So on behalf of all of you and on the behalf of organizing team and myself, I extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Swaminathan sir. And I also welcome all my other associate deans and deans who have joined, who are supposed to deliver their sessions in the subsequent days. And also I welcome more than 150 people so far have joined. Out of 190 have registered and we permitted shortlisted. So with this, I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Swaminathan. And really, we are very lucky to listen to him. And he is practically headed all these initiatives and heading for the last 3 rounds in NAAC and other things. Kindly listen, make a note of it. And as we said in our email, all the sessions are compulsory. Kindly switch off your or keep your cell phones in silent mode. Do not try to leave and come back during the session. And yes, definitely we are going to, I know that you are all not for participation certificate, but then the participation certificate will be issued only when you attend all these 12 sessions in this 1 week. And we seek your fullest cooperation and support for making this event very successful. Thanks once again. Welcome all of you once again. Over to Dr. Swaminathan sir for his inaugural address. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Badrinath. I hope I am audible to everybody. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this the inaugural session for the UGC Paramash Online Faculty Development Program on the most important and task that every higher educational institution has to embark on, which is on going towards an accreditation. And of course, what the the present times has pushed us to the online teaching pedagogy. So I have a small presentation which I will go through, and then I would like to leave the session open, because I understand from Dr. Badrinath that there are institutions, different types of institutions. We have affiliated colleges, autonomous colleges, and also some of the deemed universities. Faculty from some of the deemed universities have registered. So I have made a small presentation that will sort of provide an insight and an overview into the what the entire NAAC accreditation is all about, and how we can, and why is it important, and how we can go about it. So I will quickly run through the presentation, and at the end, I would like to spend some time. If you have any specific questions, I would like to answer all the questions. And also in the meantime, during the presentation, if you have a question, you could also type it in the chat box, which we will take it up, in the end. So, but I'll just get the presentation. Sir, you will have to stop presenting. Sir, Paramash Shastra. So.
Yes, sir. 1 minute.
Yeah.
Audio slight கரகரப்பு இருக்கு, கொஞ்சம் kindly check, Dr. SS sir.
Yeah, just 1 minute. I will just change my audio settings. Is it okay now?
It seems better. More like కొంచెం కరకరంగా ఉంది లైట్.
Right. Okay.
Sir, now you can share your screen, sir.
Yeah, I am.
Sir, other professor, please mute yourself, please.
Yes.
You are able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I said I will quickly go through this presentation on the importance of NAAC accreditation, and also the online teaching pedagogy. As most of you might know, NAAC stands for the National Accreditation and Assessment Council, which is the autonomous body of the University Grants Commission, which was established in '94, and currently it's headquartered at Bangalore, and it's also has a office at New Delhi. And the main objective of NAAC is essentially to assess and accredit higher educational institutions. And look at what Dr. Badri mentioned in this welcome address, the importance that suddenly that the MHRD, the government of India is the trust that is being offered on trying to provide enabling institutions to be accredited by NAAC. So this is just a small statistics which shows that only about 4% of our higher educational institutions are accredited by any of these paneled accrediting agencies, be it NAAC or NBA. And of these institutions, that's about 1,523 institutions in the country as a whole, majority of which are universities and colleges that have been accredited by NAAC. And you would see that there are very few institutions in the country which have got A plus and A double plus. And that this is one of the major concern for people in the ministry with the country with the population with different types of institutions. And, how do we? And it's going to be impossible to make them all homogeneous in terms of the courses that are going to be delivered, in terms of the quality that is being offered in this institution. So one way that the ministry is working on is trying to bring colleges that are performing better, accredit them, and then start helping them out with still further enhancing their quality as well. And this is one of the reasons why this Paramash scheme itself was started, where UGC identified these hub institutions which have got very high grades in NAAC to help the institutions in the neighborhood, be it affiliated colleges, autonomous colleges, state universities, whatever be the type of institution, help them to improve their quality so that when they go in for a NAAC accreditation or when they go for the next cycle of the NAAC accreditation, they would be able to, in fact, get better grades. And that's how Shastra was selected as one of the hubs to run the Paramash scheme in the Trichy Tanjavur district. And if you would stop here and ask, and this is one of the questions that most people ask, especially the academicians, because why should an institution get accredited? And this is the fundamental question that we need to have a clarity on the purpose of why we need to get accredited, so that as we move along this process, we are able to achieve our goals. And to me, I would say that it's accreditation is a very, very direct means of assessing your own strengths, your weaknesses, and the opportunities that lie in the campus. And the second reason is once you are able to identify your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, then you would be able to allocate, especially people who are in this audience who are administrators, principals, and deans of associate deans of various institutions, who would understand then where they need to plan the resources on. They would be able to allocate adequate resources where their weaknesses are, so that they would be able to strengthen it, and where they have already achieved a certain level of competency, then they would be able to further flourish and nourish those niche areas as well. And that's also a very important reason what accreditation does. And of late, especially the last 2 years, if you look at the way the certain schemes of the various funding agencies, especially Department of Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology, the BIRAC, which is another arm of biotechnology, which is providing huge amount of funding to a lot of institutions. They look at these data, the grades that institutions get in terms of providing them with funding. And of course, there are a lot of other new schemes that are being tagged on to accreditation. So that institutions take the accreditation process as seriously as they would as an academic with the same kind of academic rigor that they would do for a regular teaching, research, and other activities.
Sorry for the interruption. కొంచెం voice break ஆகுது.
Yes, sir.
உங்க voice கொஞ்சம் break ஆகி
Just
கொஞ்சம் பாருங்க.
1 minute.
Sir, slightly reduce the volume, sir. That will.
I'm just using an inbuilt mic. Just give me 1 minute. I will just fix this. Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we're talking about, and also, this kind of NAAC accreditation provides institutions to initiate and innovate new modern methods of pedagogy, which also I will explain while we move on to the online mode as to how Shastra has transitioned very quickly from regular teaching to online mode of engagement during this COVID season. And of course, NAAC is also being looked as a barometric test for both industries, especially industries that come for placement, and also for academic collaborations as well. So with an accreditation, with a good score, institutions would be able to partner with institutions of similar level quality. So there is sort of confidence that both the industry and your peer academicians get while you're able to present the institution with a higher grade. And this is basically what I would say. It's a cycle, the quality cycle that the institution gets wrapped up into, which is very, very critical. And as I look at it, while these things start to germinate slowly in the campus, while your accreditation scores improve, you get better grades, then the funding agencies give you money, and when you have money coming in, your research performance improves. When you're slowly getting to yourself known as the research institutions, you have new faculty members with new areas of expertise who come and join you, and then they bring in new money for their research. And because of that, your industrial collaborations will improve, your academic collaborations will improve. So this is a very, very tight knit, quality process that actually is initiated once an institution has a very good accreditation grade. And of course, this is a very important information that outsiders look at, and especially students who are our foremost important stakeholders in our institution, where they get this credible, reliable information. Just leave alone what Times of India or the other magazines call out and put up their rankings. So if the institution is placed high ranking in the NARF, or has a good NAAC accreditation score, or a good accredited program through the MBA, that's a very good, reliable, quality indicator for a student who wants to join the institution. So you will also have good quality students who slowly come and join. So as I said earlier, this is a very, very highly tight-knit, vicious circle, and which is very, very important for any institution to survive in these stress times. And once you are able to achieve this, of course, there is a new sense of perception, a direction that the institution gets, which as administrators you will have to quickly identify, latch on to them, and then keep moving. So the reason why I have put giving so much of importance to the last point is that as an affiliated college or as an autonomous institution, today you are with us in this Paramesh scheme, where we try to help you to get a good score. And that's the objective, that's our goal today. So once we achieve it, the institution has to quickly recalibrate itself and say, now that I have got this grade, what is that I want to do in the next 5 years? Because the accreditation is going to be valid for 5 years, and it's not that we do a set of things that are necessary to get the institution accredited, and once we get the score, then we don't have to do much about it or worry much about it for the next 4 or 5 years, while till we start preparing for the next NAAC accreditation. It is not like that. So it's as I said, this is a quality circle. So you have to keep going through the circle just as you would go, in the merry-go-round. From a starting point, you just keep going round and round every 5 years, where when you come back to the starting point, which would be the date when you get your accredited scores, you will have to start thinking, what is that I want to do in the next 4 or 5 years, and where is that what do I want to take my institution, and so that I am able to either maintain the same grade if institution get A++, or if you have an A or A+, how do I go from an A to A+, or an A+ to an A++. And the reason why these grades are becoming increasingly important is that for an affiliated college, any CGPA that NAAC awards that is between 3 to 3.25, you would be considered for an autonomous status, after an on-site visit by experts that the UGC would constitute. And if in the second cycle, if an affiliated institution gets a CGPA of between 3.26 to 3.5, then they would be eligible to be considered for autonomous status without a visit. And if institutions are able to get CGPA more than 3.51, then you get a direct 10-year autonomous status. So all these things are in fact given in the UGC's conferment of autonomous status upon colleges, and this becomes a sort of as if I had to say, showing the character, to say institutions, hey, if you are able to get these grades, you would be considered for autonomy. And for any affiliated colleges, considering the burden, the difficulty that they have, the challenges that they face in an affiliated system, an autonomous college gives them a lot of liberty in terms of trying to offer their programs and so on. So that it's a very good, it's highly beneficial for affiliated colleges to get these scores and then move on to an autonomous college. If there are autonomous colleges, and if you are able to get the CGPA of more than 3.26 for 3 consecutive cycles, and for the technical programs, if 2/3 of the programs are accredited by National Board of Accreditation, then this becomes an eligibility criteria for these autonomous colleges to submit their application for a deemed university status. So, as you would see, and finally, if it's a deemed university, the grade of more than 3.51, makes it a category 1 institutions, where as Shastra, which is a category 1 institution, we enjoy a lot of benefits in terms of the wide variety of programs that we are able to offer at this time. And of course, if the CGPA for even a deemed university is between 3.26 and 3.5, it's a category 2. You get limited autonomy in terms of running these programs. So as you would see from the slide, whether the institution is affiliated, autonomous, or it's a deemed university, there's a lot of importance that is being given to accreditation. And through this accreditation process, you would be able to quickly either upgrade yourself, from an affiliated to an autonomous, or if the institution has aspirations to become a deemed university, from autonomous college to a deemed university. And for deemed universities, if the grades are good, that provides a lot of flexibility in terms of the category institutions. And also, I'm being told that from the next year, maybe even in the NIRF ranking, the scores in accreditation will also be factored in terms, as part of the perception scores. So if that were to take place, that would also be an additional advantage for us to get, very good scores in NAAC accreditation or NBA accreditation process. And if you have to talk about the process flow, how do we, usually institutions, there are institutions, I think even in this group, that has gone through the first round of first cycle of NAAC accreditations, and there are also institutions which have for the first time planning to subject themselves for the accreditation process. So what I would like to tell them is, applying for accreditation process is not like submitting your data for NIRF, or submitting data to AICPE, or for that matter even submitting data for your university affiliation. It is a much more rigorous process that involves a lot of time, that involves a lot of effort from a team of faculty in terms of collecting data and presenting them. So in the process flow, these institutions will have to first register themselves in the NAAC portal, which is the Higher Education Institutions Registration, which the NAAC refers to it as the HEI registration. And once you are approved, so the minimum eligibility for you to be, to subject yourself to NAAC accreditation is that the institution should have been in existence for a minimum of 6 years, or at least 2 batches should have passed out. So that's the minimum eligibility for the program. And once NAAC goes through the registration process and it approves you for the IAQA substitute for the submission, where you will have about 45 days once you submit your IAQA to the self-study report submission. So what it means is that institutions which have decided to go for NAAC accreditation, so you will have to have your entire data. You cannot wait. Once you submit your IAQA, NAAC usually gets back to you within 14 days or maximum 21 days, 3 weeks, and either they approve or they send it back for resubmission, right? So which means you will have once NAAC, say for example, NAAC says today it approves Shastra for submission of SSR, I will have 45 days to submit the SSR. That's it. So everything is online system. So nobody can do anything. So the dates are already in the computer. If the SSR doesn't get submitted, the entire process you'll have to start again, go back and get your IAQA approved, and then come back for the SSR submission back and forth again. So you will have to have predominantly all the data that is required, even at the stage of IAQA submission, so that when NAAC approves it, because as you would go through the files that are there in the NAAC website, you will also realize that there are a lot of formats and a lot of additional information that you will have to, in fact, upload along with your IAQA as well as in the SSR. So which means, unless you have the data ready, collecting data stage, will not help you, and it's going to be impossible for any team, for any institution to start to collect data after your IAQA approval within 45 days for SSR submission. So our experience has been that, we require at least, minimum of 3 to 4 months to completely collect data. In some cases, that there will be things that you would be doing, but you would not have maintained data. So you will have to talk to your alumni, you will have to talk to faculty who were working before in your institution, and you will have to, dig out a lot of data, a lot of your colleagues. And now with this COVID situation, with not all people attending the institution, so it will be challenging in terms of data collection. So you will have to plan, go through the formats well in advance, and the best way to do it is pull up each of those data, assign people, faculty members, teams who will be responsible for collecting each data. And then once the data is collected, then you would be able to accumulate them in the same format and get it ready for the SSR submission. So once the SSR is submitted, NAAC, the last 18 months or so, has now come up with a new process. I just quickly run through that process, and also where the data that you submit, which is shown here as the QN, which refers to the quantitative data. So you get already assessed while you start putting in the data in QN. So which means before the peer team actually visits your campus, 70% of your evaluation is already done. Okay? And you would also be submitting qualitative assessment, which is the QL, and which the peer team that visits the campus would actually go through them for the remaining 30%. So, or in other words, when the peer team visits your campus, they are going to evaluate you only for 30%. and 70% of evaluation is already done while you submit your data. And there is also a very strong PTV, DVV process, which is the data verification and validation, which happens once you submit your SSR. And there's NAAC has now tied up with third-party people who would do this data verification and validation. And if they feel that some data might be wrong, they will get back to you, ask for proof for such data. For example, if an institution says that they conducted 20 international conferences in a year, and the last 5-year data you gave, 20 into 500 international conferences, while the submitting your data, you might put just the 100 as a number. During the DVV process, they will ask you data on the name of the conferences, the speakers who attended, who came, delivered lectures in the conference, the attendees who attended the conference, so on and so forth. So they go to the minute detail to ensure that the data that is submitted by the institution is correct. So in other words, the correctness of your data gets validated, verified. And that's why, since it's done through a third party, and they want to make institutions across the country that go for NAAC accreditation uniform, because earlier, while peer teams were doing the 100% assessment, there was always complaints to NAAC that this team was tough. Not just the students would complain that the A section got a easier question paper or a easier evaluator. Same way, institutions started to complain to NAAC that the peer team that came to our institution was tough, whereas to the neighboring institution was easy. Though we were doing well, they got better grades. So to minimize such subjectivity in grading, NAAC has come up with this process of assessing for 70% of grades based on the data that is submitted by the institution, and remaining 30% on the visits that happens during that day. So once the visit happens, then the grades are, then there is a meeting that takes place in NAAC, and they go through everything, and finally the grades and the scores are declared. And these are the 7 criteria that NAAC actually looks into. And the first one, of course, is on the curricular aspects, where they seek data on the number of new programs that is being done, that is being run, number of times the curriculum has been changed, whether if we get feedback from the student on the curricular aspects, so on and so forth. And the second important category criteria is on teaching, learning, and evaluation. Third, on research, consultancy, and extension, where they look at a lot of sub-criteria on how does the institution promote research, the consultancy funding that the institution has earned, the kind of extension activities, how does the institution connect with the society for the overall growth. And the fourth criterion is on infrastructure, the physical infrastructure that's actually present in the institution, your library, which would include not only the physical buildings, but also the assets, the things that are the laboratory facilities, the library facilities, the IT resources that you have, and also the maintenance of these facilities. And the fifth criteria is on student support and progression, where a lot of data on student placement dates, placement, how many of them progress, how many of them write competitive exams, how many of them go for higher grade, the placement record of the institution, and so on. And of course, the last one is on governance and leadership, and the last one is on innovations and best practices. So these are the major 7 criteria that NAAC looks into. But each one of these, there are at least 4 or 5 on an average across these sub-criteria, and those sub-criteria you will have to get both qualitative data for SEM and quantitative data. And I think there are about 80 such sub-criteria which fall into these 7 criteria. So it is very, very critical, and I'm not going into each of this in detail because, as I see from the program schedule, most of my colleagues, they would be dealing with these criteria in detail. So what I want to leave you with at this point is these are the 7 criteria that NAAC actually looks at, and collecting data for for each of these criteria and the sub-criteria, there's a lot of thinking that has to go. There is a lot of planning that the faculty member, the NAAC coordinator, the IQAC team, if you have already in place, has to go through this data so that there is no conflict of data, that whatever data that you give in for the second criteria should actually reflect the data that's presented in the fifth criteria, and so on and so forth. So there is no difference in the difference in the data that's being submitted. And of course, whether it's an university, autonomous institutions, or affiliated college, as I mentioned in the previous slide, the 7 different criteria have their own weightages depending upon the type of institution. And for each of these major criteria, for example, if you take curricular aspects, there are 4 sub-criteria within curricular aspects. So each of those sub-criteria also have their own marks. And if you go to NAAC's website, all these things are provided in detail in the NAAC manual. So depending on the type of institution, you would be able to sort of assess yourself, do a brutal self-assessment of where your institution stands today. And one of the reasons that I firmly believe why as Shastra, as a team at Shastra, we have been successful in our accreditation processes is that our initial assessment of where we stand. I think that's where we will have to be really tough on us. There is no grace marks to understand and see where you stand. And once you know where you are, then it becomes very easy to find a path to reach the destination. I'm sure that every institution would be aiming for an A+ or an A++. But at the same time, you need to know where you are today, whether you are in A trying to go to A++, or whether you are in B++ trying to go to A+. So I think you need to know where your origin is, so that you know the destination, and we can find the shortest and the quickest way of and of course quickest way, when I say that, the ethical means, we would be able to identify the quickest path of getting there. And once, if you are able to do that self-assessment, the initial self-assessment, then based on these scores, for example, if it's an autonomous institution, you would know that majority, close to 1/3 of your scores, 30% of your scores is on teaching, learning, and evaluation. So I would quickly deep dive into teaching, learning, evaluation, and see what are the sub-criteria, how do I get maximum marks in teaching, learning, and evaluation. And similarly, not that the other criteria are less important to me. Other criteria are also important, but this is extremely important. So I would spend most of the time trying to give the best data, the reliable, most correct data, accurate data for all the criteria, with an extra attention on where the weightages are higher for the type of institution that you are. So with that said, all these details and the weightages for each of those sub-criteria are also available in the NAAC website. So you would please visit the NAAC manual and go through the NAAC manual, so that gives you a very clear idea as to the weightages for each types of institutions, whether it is a university, autonomous college, or an affiliated college which offers a UG program or a PG program. So this is the first part of my talk today that I just wanted to share with you on the importance of NAAC, and as well as quickly touch upon why NAAC accreditation is important for institutions, and the broad criteria of the NAAC process, along with the weightages that NAAC offers to each of these criteria. So I will also quickly finish off the second part of my presentation on embarking on this which everybody is now talking towards, from a kindergarten school student going to kindergarten, a school going student, to people who are now taking courses, even faculty who are now engaging themselves in a lot of these Coursera, Swayam courses also to regularly keep them updated. And one thing that has transformed the entire teaching system is the way we are teaching. And and the reason for this is of course COVID, and why you would be seeing a lot of online the instruction, the engagement of instructions happening, happening in the online media, and this is only going to increase in the next couple of months. And before we start, before even if COVID gets okay and situation resorts to normal, people would now then be by then would be used to using online platforms for engaging with their classrooms as well. So if you look at maybe sometime in late February or early March, where we did not have too many cases in India. So with respect to India, we could sort of put it as a pre-COVID. So this slide, I'm just trying to put a time perspective as to where we are and why online engagement with students for teaching, for assessment is going to be critical. So if this pre-COVID, if we assume this to be in February, so starting March or April, and now would be the COVID, and people where I have given talk on these webinars on COVID and online resources, they always tell me that the next is the the post-COVID season. But as we move from a COVID to a post-COVID scenario, we'll have to transition through a co-COVID situation. And this is these are some practical cases that we have seen either in Italy or in the US or in the UK, where it's not overnight going to change from a COVID to a post-COVID situation. We will have to transition through this COVID situation, which I believe right now India is moving towards or in the COVID situation, and in the next couple of months slowly transition to a post-COVID situation. And while we are in the COVID situation, I do not think that we can keep all of our academic engagements in a switched off mode, or not engage with our students for the next couple of months, and because it's also going to be a loss in terms of time to the students. So and during this COVID situation, I think the internet and these online resources have given us a huge advantage in terms of being able to engage with students. But having said that, there are also a lot of issues that we need to keep in mind, which I will go through with it as I move on in this presentation. And again, if you have to look at, as we move on or transition into a post-COVID, the post-COVID situation, we will have to, tell ourselves that, things are moving towards a new normal. So I don't think after a post-COVID situation, you can still be, expect this, kind of transactions that we were doing in the academic, in our institutions, the same way as we used to earlier. Okay. So we are right now somewhere, once we in the stabilized, transform area where we've been observing what's happening around us in February, March, and then slowly aligning ourselves for the online teaching, the online engagement, and our faculty and students have slowly adjusted. And now we know what we want and how we also know what the students' expectations are. We have now come up with our own new designs so that we are able to sort of satisfy the students in terms of what we deliver in the online platform as well. And then slowly stabilize our new designs so that we now transform the entire teaching learning process. And of course, this will take couple of more years to, once it sustains, then we keep optimizing what we are doing so that we are able to offer the best. So in a nutshell, as I said earlier, this, immediately we have done the crisis management as we were asked to close the institutions, in March 16th. I believe we closed from March 17th onwards, right? So, I would say, I've been talking to a lot of academicians across the country, and, Shastra is one of the institutions that quickly transitioned into the online mode. When I say quickly, in a few days' time. So March 16th, March 17th morning we closed, and from March 21st onwards, we were able to offer, all of our courses in an online curriculum, in an online platform. The reason why we were able to do that was we took a conscious decision when we started the semester that all of our courses will be on the Google platform. So once we did that, all of our courses were in the Google platform. And once we had to close the campus, it took us some time to redraft the curriculum, the timetable on the curriculum. and then inform the students, give them time to go back home, settle down, get their data packs, and then from that Monday onwards, we were able to start our courses online. And I think this is one of the quickest, transition that any institution could actually make in terms of, switching over from the face-to-face delivery in the campus to being able to engage with all the courses, in an online mode. And we were able to conduct the assessments for the final year. And in fact, we have also released the results after, and not just conduct the final exam. After the exam is over, we have also deliberated, we have also conducted the oral examinations for all the students of the graduating batch, and the results were declared about 10-15 days back. So in a quick time, without much of wastage for the graduating batch as well, we were able to quickly transition from a face-to-face delivery that was happening in campus to the digital mode. And of course, as Dr. Badrinath said in his introductory remarks, our next semester we've already designed and stabilized it, and now we are trying to transform this semester into an online semester where most of all our courses will be taught on the Google platform, and we believe to start, and we are expecting to start from August 10th onwards, which is next Monday. Our next semester will be starting. And this is my very important slide that I often show it in these type of presentations, where where the audience, a lot of academicians, and also administrators who are in this audience.
Sir, can you make your presentation on a full screen? You are able to see the participants' photograph. Yeah, I don't know whether you should do or Dr. Manjula to do, where PPT should be on full screen like earlier.
So my screen is only full screen here.
Oh, okay. Then Dr. Manjula, probably you need to do.
Sir, it is full screen, sir. Maybe they have to pin the.
Okay. Then sorry.
The participant need to pin the screen, presentation screen.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
yeah, this is one of the very important slides I usually show for audience like this, which involve both the academicians and administrators, where in this post-COVID situation, there are 10 major issues that we will have to take care of. And the first one is, in fact, our priority has been into ensuring that the personnel, and all the students, the faculty are all, and their families are all safe, and so that the stress of having to go through the COVID, getting infected with the virus, there is always the psychological stress. So that's one thing that we will have to keep in mind. The second one also that is very important is in the inequalities, especially the heterogeneous kind of students that we have. Some of them might might not have even an internet bandwidth connection near their house. It's not just the, I'm not talking about the social inequality by itself, but also, we will also have to keep in mind that not all parts of, our country is like, Mumbai or Chennai or Bangalore, where you are able to get, internet connectivity, a 4G or 5G connection, not 5G, but 4G connection at least, even in public places. So there are places, I stay in Trichy, and I don't even get a proper Airtel signal inside my house. So there are issues when I take a class when sitting at my home. So I would always prefer to go to the campus. And similarly, there are students who might not have adequate internet bandwidth to be able to listen to their to be able to log into the classes as well. And in this situation, how do we redefine excellence? I think this is going to be a very challenging task, where because the assessments that we do are to ensure that the students are learning what we are teaching, but to make a judgment of these grades might also be might also not be very justified based on what their potentials are. So we will have to think it's a very long-term situation, long-term thing that we'll have to work on how do we look at excellence in a post-COVID situation. And of course, the challenge in even we are able to teach, transact with students, but of course the assessment and evaluation have always been a challenge, especially because the students have very quick access to all the gadgets today, and not everybody is as sincere and dedicated. They might be sincere and dedicated, but in the end of the day, every student is worried about his grade. And if they find that there is a way of getting good grades, they would definitely try to take on to that. And how do we prevent from students misusing the our assessment as well is one important challenge that we have. And again, as I said, in online teaching, today, slowly our faculty members are trying to, embrace online teaching, taking it along, because, one thing that I've told my colleagues at Shastra is that, it's not that whether you like online teaching or not today, you will have to go through it. There is no other option. If you have to remain as a teacher in the institution or in any institution, you will have to now take move towards the online mode of teaching. It's not just for your own teaching, but also you would like to do courses that are offered in the online platform, be it Swayam or Coursera or edX platforms. So online teaching is going to be, there's going to be a lot of thrust on doing the online teaching, and hiring of new faculty, new people, hiring of students, that's the placement, is also going to be a challenge, which we will also have to think and see how we are going to take it through. And if you look at the recent circulars from UGC and other institutions, they have also put in that institutions should also have a quarantine center, medical facility that would immediately, cater to people if there is an emergency. And these things all don't come free of cost. There is a cost that's going to be associated with it, and you will have to, as administrators, people have to look at how do you now meet these additional expenses that are now becoming of information. Has followed the DST or the DBT's website, you would also quickly realize that there is a lot of trust. There's a lot of call for proposals, especially for people, especially for projects which provide solutions. When I say solutions, it's not just about coming up with a new drug or a new vaccine for COVID, but coming up with new products, new designs that are required so that would take. If you look at care of the COVID as well as the post-COVID, when there was status quo, everything was going on well, and I also look at COVID as a huge opportunity potential. It has got its own challenges, but I think the opportunities that COVID has presented to us, the academic community, in terms of engaging in an online model, or coming up with new assessment models, or coming up with new research, trying to address new research challenges, it's provided us with a lot of opportunities. So I would say that we are now somewhere near in the early excitement phase, and to move from the early excitement phase to the success, where usually people fail here, which is called the valley of death, because it's too hard to jump from to the early excitement to success unless you have a catalyst or you have a strong, which in fact the catalyst is essentially to provide you a strong commitment, a positive reinforcement, telling you what you're doing is right. It might not be the best in the but it might not be the ideal thing to do, but that's the best thing that you can do in the current situation. So it can quickly move on from an early excitement to the success. And if you to be able to survive this valley of death, you need that momentum, you need that catalyst to move on from here to success. Because if you this is going to be very tough to jump here, and this is where a lot of entrepreneurs actually fail, because that's when it takes a lot of effort from them, and the tiredness of getting here in fact makes them fail here. So I think we should move with the same momentum, build teams that provide you with a lot of positive reinforcement. Form your own partners, so with like-minded people, so that you are able to move from here to there without failing or without being mediocre, but just touching success there. So with that, I will stop my presentation, and I will be happy to take questions in terms of either the NAAC or in terms of the online teaching as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for a very nice presentation, very informative, and almost you have covered end-to-end points. But still, I believe the participants may have their own doubts. Now the floor is open for question and answer. People can unmute and can ask orally, or you can also use the chat box to put your questions. Now the floor is open for question and answers.
Sir, better go with chat box, sir.
But if you get too much also, okay, one or two may ask orally, then parallelly
Yes,
also
sir,
I
yes, sir.
think, yeah.
In between, they can write it on chat box.
Yeah, others can just post it in their chat box. Yes, sir. Audience, now you are free to ask questions.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, sir.
Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, sir. This
Ask question. Your name, college, and then ask.
Sir, this is Madhav Sharma. Sir,
Sir, a little bit louder, sir.
sir, this
Yes,
is
sir. You're
Madhav
audible.
Sharma.
Please go on.
Madhav Sharma,
Yes, sir.
principal.
Good morning, sir.
My doubt is, we are having three different institutions. One is arts and science, other one is engineering, other one is law. So it's three different colleges, three different age group. One is 12 years age, one is 10 years age, another one is 3 year age. Now we go for all the things put together or separately.
So, if the three institutions, the three different programs that you run in your institutions, are they in the same campus, run by the same trust, the same name?
Same trust, same deed, same.
Okay, everything is same. If you don't meet the 6 years criteria, the other two programs can go.
Okay. Other than law, remaining 3 years, remaining 2 will go.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Sir, any other questions?
We have 161 participants. At least 10 questions should come.
There is a question on how the Department of H&S helping in NAAC accreditation in engineering colleges. Sir, I will tell you, I think when you mean H&S, you are referring to humanities and sciences, right?
Yes.
So the reason, the faculty count that you have in Department of H&S is also being used while calculating your student-teacher ratio. So the faculty members there, provide, if you have like 5 or 6 people who teach the maths and English courses in the engineering program, they are added to your total number of faculty. So your faculty-student ratio improves. And of course, if you're asking in terms of how do you involve them in the accreditation process, the thing would be, an English faculty, being in charge of writing your qualitative reports so that there is no grammatical mistake, or so they would be able to do a good job in terms of both English without any mistakes, as well as present the facts in the most appropriate manner.
Let me ask one question on their behalf, sir. One is about the fees involved in accreditation process. How much the college has to pay to the NAAC for accreditation process? How much fees involved, monetary thing? Second one is, you know that the tier 2, tier 3 colleges or young colleges are not equally blessed to have a very good infrastructure and the faculty with the doctorate research, the research background or even doctorates. In those cases, suppose if the rank is allotted to a college, a lesser rank is allotted, how can they improve? What is the way to improve? Appeal? How long they have to wait to re-accredit or how to improve their scores?
Okay. So the first question with regards to fees, the fee is again based on the institution type, and I think we will have to pay 25,000 rupees along with the IIQA submission. And once the IIQA gets submitted, then you will have to pay based on the number of programs that you are subjecting yourself, the fee, the accreditation fees will change. All the details that would be collected from these. One question that you processes in this. One is, you get a score and you say at that time, this is not what I deserve more. So which means you can go for a revaluation, just as the students apply for revaluation after their exam results are given. Similarly, NAAC also has a way of, as a process by which you can go for re-accreditation, where you can challenge the grades that is given to you, and then there is a lot of documentation and submission of documents from your side. In terms of it is more of a convincing mode where you tell NAAC that this is what I deserved and this is what I got, and you will have to convince NAAC why they are wrong and why you are right. Okay, that is one way of improving your score. The other way is, you have got a score which you think you still deserve. That's what you deserve. But you think, the next 2 years you have a chance of improving it. There is a scope again within that to go for a reassessment. This after minimum 1 year after you have been accredited, we think there is a lot of improvement that has happened in the last 1 year, which will potentially improve your grades. Then you can go for a reassessment within your 5-year period.
One more question has come from Mr. M. Chandrasekharan. What will be the new regulation for accreditation process in future? Because UGC, NAAC, and AICTE comes under one banner. We propose a new
Correct. See, on all said and done, NAAC and MBA are going to stay. Okay? But maybe with the new education policy, people will come up with new accreditation agencies. UGC may empanel, in addition to NAAC and MBA, they could come up with, some other new accreditation agencies and say, we have a huge number of institutions. Just 2 bodies doing accreditation is not enough. They could empanel a couple of more accreditation agencies and say, these people can also accredit, and UGC will accept those grades. But that's going to take some more time. But at this point, what we have is NAAC and MBA, and it's good to go with either NAAC or with MBA for technical courses and get themselves accredited instead of waiting for the new education policy to be implemented, merging of AICTE and UGC, because merging of AICTE and UGC has been talked for a very, very long time. For the last 5-6 years, people have been talking about the National Higher Education, the NHCR, the regulatory body that will govern everything. But still, just unifying AICTE and UGC is not, the ultimate goal, or that's not the ultimate thing. But still, you don't have synergy with medical college. MCI is separate. PCA is separate. TCI is separate. PCA is going to be separate. So all these professional bodies are going to be separate, and they are not going to be still tied with the higher education regulatory body. Still, you're going to have issues. So it is not that the new education policy, new accreditation processes will come. It will take time, but I think at this point, since we have NAAC and MBA going on, and if you are eligible, I think institutions should start working towards them in the next 1 year and see how they can better their grades.
Another question has come regarding online. Without much spending, how colleges can do online classes? Without much investment on infrastructure, all of them are not having any studio for recording and all those things. So what are the platforms or facilities, maybe the free facilities available, which can be availed by the colleges to deliver online classes?
Sir, online classes, I for one have always been advocating online classes means does not cost much. The reason why I say that is that the way I am connecting with you, all I need is a laptop with a camera and audio facility and a good internet bandwidth. And the same case with you, with 158 participants in locations, listening to this at different locations. The same thing, you are going to be delivering and your students are going to be connected with you. So it doesn't cost much. So we don't require a studio, because when you're talking about an online certificate degree program like SWIAM or Coursera for that matter, then you need to have like a recording studio. To that extent, you will have to have quality of your video and audio so that you are able to present it, and people wherever they are able to go through these courses. But here you're trying to connect with your students, and now you have a lot of open source tools that are available. How you can use your own PPT as an animator, how you can use your mobile phone, and one of the biggest advantage for a student is that once you record this Google Classroom and you post it in your classroom, this is available for the student the entire semester. He may not attend my class today, but whenever he gets internet connectivity, or whenever even a student who attends the class, he has a question or he's not able to understand what you taught, has now an opportunity to go back, rewind, and listen to the same lecture n number of times till he wants. So this online platform, in my opinion, has given a very simple way. I wouldn't call it a very cheap, but it is an affordable way of connecting with students, faculty and students engaging for some academic transactions. So don't think of online as can be done only if you have a high-end recording studio and things like that.
Okay. Any other questions for the participants? One is asking about NEP 2020.
Sorry,
directly.
So again, NEP 2020 is in fact a 2-day session by itself. So so what I would say about NEP 2020 that is relevant to this portion of accreditation is what I have already shared with you. And I think if you think that your career as a faculty is going to be as a teacher, as a faculty in a school, or or in a college, or professional, or even otherwise, it's very good. It's a good document, whether for everybody, every faculty to go through it and see the kind of thinking the government has, and what the education policy makers are thinking about, and how the education itself is going to transact, is going to change in the next coming years. I think there's a question on when recordings are
storage capacity. One has asked about storage capacity.
See, all your recordings, Google provides enough space for you to store them. Okay? So this 1 hour session of recording, I think, would be close to about 600 MB of space. So I think Google Classrooms are fit enough to handle that kind of storage. And using a Google Classroom, it's not just for your delivering your lecture, but also you will be able to conduct your assessments. There are a lot of other opportunities that Google actually provides. It's not just the classroom where where you are able to see your students, where you are able to present your class, and through the chat box you are able to answer some of their questions. But Google Apps provide much more than what actually the Google Classroom provides, and I'm sure that there is enough storage capacity that would be available for students and for faculty to use for each of these classrooms.
So thank you, sir. And we have another constraint at 2 o'clock. Again, the people have come back for their next session after lunch. So I know that you are also very busy. Thank you very much for sparing your valuable time. And you gave a very good picture about the NAAC accreditation and overview of the entire NAAC accreditation process. You stressed very importantly, I like it, that first of all, we must understand where we are before we plan where we have to go. So the self very important. That point you stressed in your part. The second one also, the online teaching is not a very costly affair, and it is well within the reach of even every institution. And it's an excellent opportunity also to record and replay and hear the lectures. It is not possible in a normal time. So you have highlighted the very good aspects of both the thing. You made a very good beginning for this FAP. They have a good start for this program. and we are very, very grateful and thankful to you. So on behalf of all my participants and the organizing team, I would like to thank you for sparing your valuable time with us for addressing on this very vital topic. And participants, after this formal vote of thanks, you can all leave and then kindly come back at 2 o'clock. Please do join 5-10 minutes before the session. And during the session, kindly keep your video, the closed mode, because a lot of disturbance, people are moving around, showing different pictures and other things. So, and also I saw that my Dr. Kumar is requesting for muting your audio also, so as to get better clarity of the presenter's audio aspect also. So with this, we had a very good beginning. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks to Dr. Manjula, Dr. Arun, and all the participants for their wonderful support for making this inaugural session a very successful one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.